Hey Beirut Buzzers, this is Taleen and welcome back to another episode of Beirut.com's Beirut Buzz podcast. If you've been tuning in since we started our podcast, you've probably listened to one of our first few episodes, and one of them was a talk about suicide prevention in Lebanon, and it was with Christine and Mira from the Embrace team. Mental health has become such an important topic. It always has been, but thankfully we have initiatives like Embrace that are working to really break the stigma regarding mental health. Our guests today are Reve Romanos, who is the Lifeline supervisor, and Mira, who is a volunteering operator at Embrace's suicide prevention hotline. Hi guys, how are you?
Hi Taleen, how are you?
I'm doing great. Okay, so I wanted to start off with talking to Mira about your volunteer work as an operator. How long have you been working with Embrace?
So I've been volunteering at Embrace for 3 years approximately now.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So why did you choose to volunteer at the Embrace hotline?
Honestly, when I started to volunteer at Embrace, it was a much smaller NGO than it is right now. And من وقت ما بلشت Embrace تطلع على social media, I was really amazed by their mission, their vision, and their values, especially because not a lot of awareness is done on mental health يعني بوقتها حتى هلا. So this is what pushed me really to volunteer at the Lifeline.
I think Embrace was one of the first initiatives to actually introduce فكرة suicide prevention hotline, and I think that's a wonderful first step that was taken هون بلبنان. إنه you see all of these countries around the world that do have a suicide prevention hotline, and based on كل هالresearch I think that the team has been doing, and they've been documenting all of these calls and how much people they've been able to help. It's very uplifting to see people are being very responsive with the hotline. So as an operator, I'm guessing you have very difficult situations, very difficult phone calls that you have to deal with. How do you cope with these heavy phone calls in general?
I wouldn't say difficult. I wouldn't say a phone call يعني أو a caller أو a call is difficult. I would say more إنه we have a responsibility towards the people who are calling us to first answer the phone and then try to support them as much as possible. When it comes to coping, we are really supported by our supervisors and the NGO as a whole يعني. We have great initiatives that we do at the Lifeline for our own mental health command. So we take care of others while still taking care of ourselves.
Oh, is it? Can you talk about how the team is really providing a safe and comforting environment? Do you guys undergo training? How do you go about it, a day in the office?
Self-care is an essential part of our training that we do before someone can be an operator أكيد. But also we have a lot of other activities that we do and we post about on social media. Sometimes we go on hikes. Sometimes we have self-care day where you can come in your pajamas, we can watch a movie, eat popcorn, just chill together as a family in the office.
I think that would be nice, coming to the office in your pajamas.
Yeah.
I would support this idea. I think it should be implemented in all of our كل شيء في offices بلبنان. I hope هلا my boss is listening to this كتير بشيل هيك pajama day. بس I think إنه mental health in the office, regardless of what type of job it is, I've always heard إنه في a psychologist that's supposed to be present مثلا in big companies. I've never really heard of this بلبنان in general. ما بعرف, my knowledge is very limited هيك. بس it's very nice to see the ways that you can make the office life much better, especially when you're working with in such a sensitive field that really requires a lot of attention. It's I can't imagine having the responsibility that you have.
Yeah, this is always considered here at Embrace in all activities, all initiatives that we do. Self-care is one of our top priorities for the operators.
Do you have can you give us an example? I don't know how appropriate this is to say in the podcast, but I'm pretty sure I've had people, I know people who have been wanting to call the hotline, but there still is this uncertainty about how the call goes, what exactly, how the conversation would start, how you would have them feel more comfortable. Can you give us your basic conversation tips of when you are dealing with a caller?
I guess one of the reasons why people might be a bit not comfortable to call, يمكن because of the stigma that is here in our society and our culture about mental health, about suicide. How the call goes, it's basically whatever the caller wants to talk about. They start the conversation, whether it's by presenting themselves or presenting what's bothering them. It really depends on the caller, on the call, and everything else. يمكن ريف تساعدنا أكتر بهذا المجال.
Yeah, so it is a safe place where you can talk about wherever you want, without being judged or without jumping and giving solutions. We're just here to listen to others.
Okay, so how do you make sure that whenever you have a caller, it doesn't sound like a professional phone call? Because when someone calls, I'm assuming they would want it to feel like a friend that they're talking to. At the same time, of course, it is a professional who is going to know how to deal with the situation. But at the same time, I think the comfort aspect of the phone call is the most important part. How do you make sure that someone is going to be comfortable talking about whatever it is they want to talk about?
So part of our training too is something called befriending. So it's very important to actually befriend the caller, to give them the safe space in order for them to be able to talk without, مثل ما قالت ريف من شوي, feeling first and foremost judged. And second of all, to have the safe space in order for them to feel comfortable and feel okay with sharing with whatever they want to share.
I think that's really important, like having to break this barrier بينك وبين شخص that you can't see their face, you don't know their name, and you want them to be comfortable ويقدروا يحكوكي about whatever it is that they're struggling with. And I'm pretty sure إنه هي القصة, it's not something that you just have one phone call and بتنحل. إنه essentially, do you ever do follow-up phone calls?
Usually we compare ourselves to Red Cross. What we care about is that this person who is calling us feels better after the call, and our priority is for them to be safe at the end of the call. So we don't do therapies. It is an intervention over the phone without it's not a therapy. We sometimes do follow-up calls when the safety of the person isn't assured at the end of the call. So we might call back this person just to check how they are feeling after our call, but we don't do therapy sessions over the phone. We are here to emotionally support people, and of course to be next to them during their darkest days. So we stand by them for this phone call. During this phone call, we can follow up sometimes, but it's not every time.
Mm-hmm. So callers do have the option for it to remain like anonymous and just a conversation to deal with that situation, and they can also let you know if they would like for it to go further.
To see a therapist, we can provide numbers if they want to go further in working on themselves.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about, this is such a serious conversation. Usually our podcasts are so light, and I'm really just concerned about how I'm asking these questions. I don't want it to seem very off-putting. So I do sound a little bit scared, بس لأنه I don't want to be treading on like unwanted ground. Can you talk about the most, you said you don't want to call them difficult calls, but when you had a caller, can you talk about a particular experience that you remember that you had to cope with or you needed help with dealing after you ended the call?
You know, Taleen, we have high confidentiality with our callers. So all our calls are confidential, and we don't really talk about them. But what I can say is, you know, our supervisors are always there for us in case we had a call that we felt took us places, because, you know, sometimes we hear things, we talk about things that we also go through. So our supervisors are always there to support, to listen to us. So يعني what we do with callers, we also do with ourselves. So we kind of practice what we preach as operator and supervisor.
I think that's really important. Obviously, without disclosing any information, this is the podcast. The point of the podcast is to show the point of view of the operator, because at the end of the day, there is this concept of being the friend. And we really wanted to highlight this through the podcast because we have spoken about suicide prevention in general, we've spoken about mental health in general, and we've never had the perspective of the operator. And this is ultimately like the entire purpose of the podcast. And
for actually having us.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I really have so much respect for Embrace and all of these initiatives that are working بهيدا المجال, لأنه even I'm 22 and it's very difficult to deal with mental health at home, like trying to talk to your parents, have them understand exactly how it is. لأنه they do try to understand mental health or when you need therapy or when you want to call the hotline, but إنه because of their generation and their values, they're not very understanding in general عن موضوع mental health. So it's very important for them to be exposed كمان لهيك initiatives. I wanted to talk to you, Bas, about what you learned ever since you started working as an operator. What have you learned from this experience?
Oof. I learned a lot. يعني. I think the most important thing I learned at Embrace is that it's okay to sit in the dark with someone. يعني you don't have to turn on the light هالقد بسرعة for them to feel better or supported. Actually, sitting in the dark with someone is much more يمكن effective than looking for a solution أو finding a solution for someone. وهيدا بحد ذاتها it gives me a lot of comfort and هيدا يعني satisfaction. I was looking for the word satisfaction.
I wanted to ask, are you a student?
Currently, I'm in the process of becoming a licensed therapist.
Okay, that's wonderful. For the people that are wondering what it takes to become an operator, are there certain qualifications? Do you expect your volunteers to be within the field of psychology, or can it be anyone that has to undergo training?
Anyone who undergoes the training can become an operator. It is an intensive training and many hours of supervision. So anyone can become an operator.
The criteria are on our website. Mainly they have to be 21 plus. That's the only, I think.
Okay. This is, I guess, for anyone wondering. At some point, when I first heard about Embrace, I think I was like 19. I'm 22 now. أنا كنت حاطة براسي إنه okay, this is something I want to volunteer. And I was like, Allah, khalas, I have to wait until I'm 21. And that was like so many years ago.
We're waiting for you to apply.
هلا بنشوف هلا with my job I'm still at university. أكيد when I have the time, I think this would be something I would love to get involved in, mostly because learning about how mental health is عن جد, it's just as important as like how you need a doctor, you need a physician, you need حكيم قلب, حكيم غدة, but you also need someone to care for your mental health. We need people to understand this. وأنا I felt like مش ضروري to feel like I'm making a difference by becoming a doctor or becoming someone in the medical field. I can also be making a difference من هالناحية, because mental health also is just as important.
1/4 people in Lebanon suffers from a mental illness. So it is in every house, in every corner, it's and sometimes because we don't see it, we don't see the symptoms and they are not that obvious, we tend to think they don't exist, but they are as strong as any other illness. And we need to remove the stigma and talk about it in a very normalized, we talk about it in a very normal way, and like we are talking about any other illness.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And I think Lebanon in particular is a very difficult situation, لأنه a lot of what we've had to deal with as a population كتير مأثر على our mental health, بس لأنه it's such a collective experience, people don't really consider it mental health. Like, for example, PTSD, dealing with anxiety, بيصيروا يقولوا ما كلنا we're dealing with this, so people would like brush it off, they wouldn't care for it. But it was very good to see. It was very motivating to see everyone reach out to the Embrace hotline, especially after the August 4 blast and people becoming more comfortable to speak about mental health. So these were amazing steps in the right direction.
And I think, to remove the stigma, we need to talk more about it and to disclose sometimes that we suffer from a mental illness without being afraid of the reaction from others. It is an illness like any other illness, and we need to normalize it and talk about it more. And in order to remove the stigma, we need people who are suffering from mental illness to say it. But of course, this is not, we cannot say it everywhere. I totally understand, but hopefully one day we can say openly in an interview that I suffer from a mental illness, and hopefully it won't affect the opportunities at work or any other place.
Yeah, it's just like our slogan, talking saves lives.
Yeah, it really, really does. And I did want to ask something لأنه I was really curious about this, لأنه I know هلأ الوضع الاقتصادي بلبنان is not the easiest. If someone were to make a phone call, are there fees that you have to pay لما you make the call?
We are working to make the Lifeline toll-free, but for the moment we are working on it, but for the moment it is paid. But of course, if someone does not have enough credits, they can ask us to call them back and we call them back. They can miscall us and we call them back. But for the moment, it's not toll-free. We are working, hopefully, for our line to become toll-free. Hopefully it will work soon. Hopefully.
I was really curious about this matter لأنه I know من وراء الوضع, I guess, the initiative could be struggling to be like available 100% all the time to everyone. هلا هن the hotline is available من I think 8 الصبح until 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it is available from 8:30 a.m. till 5:30 a.m. But I have a news for you. It will be 24/7.
This is amazing. Exclusive and Beirut.com. Beirut Buzz Embrace is going to be offering 24/7 operations. This is amazing. I was just about to ask when you were what were your plans to becoming available 24 hours a day. This is wonderful.
And we are one of the few worldwide lifelines who operates 24/7. They have 5. We are 5 worldwide lifelines that operate 24/7. We're gonna be one of them, so we are so happy for that. In order to really be next to all people at all times.
This is amazing news, Anjad. This made my day, and I hopefully everyone listening to this podcast takes note of this. That it's going to be available 24 hours, and it's like you just feel really proud. A Lebanese initiative is going to be recognized at this extent, يعني إنه one of the very few suicide hotlines that's available 24/7.
Yeah,
This is
we're so
amazing.
happy.
And thank you كتير to this initiative, to everyone on your team and the operators, your volunteers. We're very proud.
It's their work, you know. They are the people who made this happen, because they were committed when no one believed in this cause, and you know, they are so happy for this, because they made it. They are volunteers. They are not paid. They are you know, they are committed to this and believing in this mission, and they brought Embrace the Lifeline where it is today, and we owe them the 24/7.
Anjad, this is really wonderful news. We're so proud of the work that Embrace is doing and all of these similar initiatives, because I hear there are many other initiatives now working on a hotline. But yes, I think yours is the only one now that's going to be available 24 hours a day. And we're so happy how you're working to break the stigma around mental health. And we urge everyone listening to this podcast to remember the phone number 1564. This is the Embrace Lifeline, and pass it on, because you could really be saving a life. And talking really does save lives.
Thank you, Taleen, so much.
Thank you so much. I think we can wrap up our podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
Taleen.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Beirut.com's Beirut Buzz podcast. Tune in to hear our chats with different initiatives from around the country. You can find the Beirut Buzz podcast on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcast. Be sure to also follow us at Beirut City Guide on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.